Jack Turner had always thought of himself as a normal guy, living a simple life. He was a mechanic, working hard to keep his small town's vehicles in good condition. He didn't seek fame or attention, but somehow on one quiet evening, that all changed. It was an ordinary Tuesday night when everything turned upside down. Jack was walking home after a long shift at the garage. The streets were empty, and the soft hum of distant cars was the only sound. The night sky was clear, with stars twinkling above. As he walked, Jack felt a strange sensation, as if something was wrong, something he couldn't explain. He paused, looking around. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. That's when it happened. Without warning, the world around him seemed to warp. The air shimmered, and the ground beneath his feet felt unstable. Before he could even react, Jack felt a strong force pulling him upward. His body was lifted off the ground, and within seconds, he found himself hurtling through the air. Panicked, he reached out, trying to grasp something, anything to stop the movement. But it was no use. The light around him became brighter, and in an instant, everything went dark. When Jack regained consciousness, he was no longer in his familiar neighborhood. Instead, he was in a strange, sterile room. The walls were a soft, glowing white, and the air smelled different, like nothing he had ever encountered before. His head throbbed, and his body felt heavy, as if he had been asleep for days. He sat up, looking around in confusion. The room was empty, save for a few strange, unfamiliar machines. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of his situation. He tried to stand, but his legs were weak, and he stumbled before catching himself on a nearby table. "Where am I?" he muttered under his breath. Suddenly, a soft, melodic voice interrupted his thoughts. "You're awake," the voice said. It was calming, yet firm. Jack spun around to find the source of the voice. Standing in the doorway was a woman. She was tall, taller than any woman he had ever seen, with long silver hair that shimmered in the light. Her eyes were an intense shade of violet, and her skin had a soft bluish tint. She wore a tight-fitting suit that seemed to pulse with an energy Jack couldn't understand. Who are you?" Jack asked, his voice shaky. His heart was pounding in his chest, and every instinct in him screamed to run. But there was nowhere to go. "My name is Thalia," she replied, her tone calm but with a certain power behind it. "You are on our ship. Human. Ship," Jack repeated, his mind struggling to comprehend her words.
What do you mean?
"Our ship? Where am I?" "You are in the Zerethian vessel," Thalia explained. "We are an advanced race, far beyond your species in terms of technology and strength. We have traveled across galaxies, and now we have come to you." Jack's mind raced. "You've come to ... me." Thalia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You are here because you have been chosen." "Chosen? Chosen for what?" Jack asked, growing more confused and fearful with every passing moment. "For something that will change the future of our people," Thalia answered, her voice serious. "Our race, the Zerethians, are in a state of crisis. We can no longer reproduce on our own, and our species is at risk of dying out. Our scientists have researched many solutions, but none have worked. Until now." Jack took a step back. Wait. Are you telling me that you've abducted me because you need my help? But why me? I'm just a mechanic. I'm nobody." Thalia smiled, though it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You are not nobody, human. You are special. Your species is capable of something that ours is not: fertility.
Yes.
Your DNA holds the key to saving us." Jack's stomach turned. "So, you're saying we want you to help us repopulate?" Thalia interrupted, her tone softening for the first time. "But there is more. We are not simply asking for your participation. We are holding a tournament. The women of our race will compete to see who is worthy of being the one to carry your child." Jack's mind reeled. This was impossible, ridiculous. A tournament? What was going on? He had so many questions, but his head was spinning too fast to keep up. "Hold on," Jack said, shaking his head in disbelief. "You want me to choose one of your women too? ... Have my child? What kind of twisted game is this?" Thalia's expression. remained calm. It is not a game, human. It is a tradition. For us, this tournament is sacred. It is how we select the most worthy among us to continue our bloodline. You, as the key to our survival, are central to this process. Jack was speechless. The idea of being dragged into an alien society's reproduction process seemed impossible. But here he was, caught in the middle of it all. He tried to find a way out, but the reality of his situation was setting in. There was no escape. He was alone, in an unknown galaxy, with no idea how to return home. And if I refuse? Jack asked, his voice low. Talia's gaze hardened. Refusal is not an option. You were chosen, and the survival of our species depends on your cooperation. A cold shiver ran down Jack's spine. He didn't know what he could do, but one thing was clear. He was not in control of his fate anymore. Thalia's expression softened again, but there was no warmth in it. You will come to understand soon enough. The tournament begins tomorrow. You will be a central figure in our society's future. Prepare yourself. With that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving Jack alone in his thoughts. The door slid shut behind her, and Jack was left in stunned silence. He could hardly breathe. What had just happened? What kind of world had he been brought into? He had no answers, only questions and fear, as the reality of his situation sank. Jack felt more powerless than ever before. But deep down, something inside him refused to give up. He might be a mechanic from a small town, but he wasn't going to let this alien race dictate his life without a fight. And somehow, he would find a way to survive no matter what the future held. The following day, Jack was led through the hallways of the massive ship by Thalia. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls were made of smooth, translucent material that seemed to glow from within, and the air was crisp, almost too clean, like being in a perfect world. Despite the beauty of the ship, Jack felt nothing but unease. Every step he took brought him closer to a fate he didn't understand. Thalia walked beside him, her long silver hair flowing gracefully behind her, her violet eyes never leaving him. Jack tried to speak, but his mind was too full of confusion and fear. The truth of his situation was overwhelming. He had been chosen for something that was beyond his control, and now he was part of an alien tradition that felt more like a punishment than a privilege. They finally arrived at a large chamber at the heart of the ship. The room was massive, filled with bright, shining lights that seemed to come from nowhere. In the center of the room, there was an open arena, surrounded by large seats that were already filled with alien women. Some were sitting, while others stood in groups, talking. In hushed voices, all of them looked at Jack as he entered, their eyes full of curiosity, intensity, power. "This is where it begins," Thalia said softly, her voice barely audible over the quiet murmurs of the crowd. "The tournament will determine who is worthy to bear your child." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. His heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The idea of being the center of such a competition made him feel small, exposed, and helpless. Thalia gestured toward the women. "These are the strongest of our kind. They will fight for the honor of carrying your child. The tournament is not just about strength. It is about skill, intelligence, and determination." Jack's eyes scanned the crowd of women. They were all different, yet all of them shared the same powerful aura. Some were tall and muscular, others were smaller but seemed no less intimidating. Each one had an air of confidence that sent a chill through Jack's spine. "Why me?" Jack asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Why do you need a human? You have everything here. You're more advanced than we are." Thalia's gaze softened, though her eyes still held a sharp intensity. "Our race has faced a curse for centuries, one that no technology can fix. Our women are strong, but our ability to reproduce has been lost. Your species, your DNA holds the answer we need." Jack wanted to argue, to demand answers, but he knew there was nothing he could do. He was trapped in a place he didn't understand, surrounded by beings who saw him as nothing more than a tool. The women began to gather in the center of the arena. They were preparing for the first challenge, which would determine the order of the competition. Jack was instructed to sit on a raised platform at the edge of the arena, where he would have a clear view of everything that happened. As he took his seat, the quiet murmurs from the crowd grew louder. But they were not speaking in any language Jack recognized. A horn sounded, signaling the start of the first event. The women stepped forward, forming two lines. They were all dressed in simple but elegant armor, each piece crafted to highlight their physical prowess. Some of the armor looked like it was made from natural materials, while others were more advanced. With glowing designs that pulsed softly with light, Talia stood beside Jack, watching the competition with a serious expression. This is the first test: physical endurance. The women will face off in a series of challenges that test their strength, speed, and agility. The first challenge was a race. The women were tasked with running from one end of the arena to the other, navigating a series of obstacles that included walls to climb, barriers to jump over, and pits to avoid. The race was fast, and Jack was stunned by how quickly and efficiently the women moved. Their agility was beyond anything he had ever seen. They leapt over obstacles with ease, their movements fluid and precise. Jack couldn't help but watch, in awe, as one of the women, a tall and muscular figure, easily surged ahead of the others, reaching the finish line first. She stood tall, breathing heavily, but with a look of fierce pride in her eyes. The other women followed shortly after, some struggling, but still pushing themselves to the limit. Talia nodded as the winner was announced. Impressive, but this is only the beginning. The challenges will grow harder as the tournament progresses. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of dread as he realized how serious this competition was. The women weren't just competing for his attention, they were fighting for their very future. Their lives and the survival of their species depended on the outcome of these trials. As the tournament continued, the challenges became even more intense. There was a test of strength, where the women had to lift and move heavy objects, showing their physical power. Then there was a test of strategy, where they had to outwit each other in a series of complex games. Through it all, Jack watched, in stunned silence, realizing that these women were not just physically strong, but mentally sharp as well. During a break between events, one of the contestants approached Jack. She was shorter than the others, but her confidence was undeniable. She smiled at him, her violet eyes warm and inviting. "Hello, human," she said softly. "I am Lyra. I hope you are not too overwhelmed by all of this." Jack hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "I don't really know what's going on," he admitted. "I never asked for this." Lyra's smile faded slightly, but she didn't seem offended. "None of us asked for this, but it is our way. The tournament is our honor, our tradition. We do not take it lightly. And you, human, you are the key to our future." Jack didn't know how to respond. He felt a strange mix of emotions as he looked at Lyra. There was something about her that felt different from the others. She wasn't as intimidating as the other women, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes. "I didn't ask for this," Jack repeated, almost to himself. Lyra nodded. "None of us did. But sometimes we have no choice but to accept what fate gives us." The horn sounded again, signaling the start of the next challenge. Lyra bowed her head slightly and turned to join the other women. Jack was left alone with his thoughts, watching as the women prepared for the next event. As the tournament progressed, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe, mixed with fear. These women were powerful, determined, and willing to do anything to secure their place in the competition. And yet, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just a tournament. He was beginning to see glimpses of the struggles these women faced, the burden they carried, and the sacrifices they were willing to make. The tournament wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. And Jack was the one who held the key to their future. As the tournament wore on, Jack began to realize how serious the competition truly was. The alien women were not just skilled in physical tasks, but their minds were sharp as well. Each new challenge brought with it new displays of power, intelligence, and willpower. It wasn't just a contest for Jack's attention, it was a fight for survival, for the future of their species. After each event, Jack would watch as the women returned to their quarters, each with a sense of pride or disappointment. Depending on their performance, the atmosphere in the arena had shifted from one of casual competition to something much more intense. Everyone knew what was at stake, and the pressure was building. One evening, as the tournament took a break for a few hours, Jack was walking through the ship's corridors trying to clear his mind. The weight of the situation felt heavier with every passing hour. He couldn't understand why he, a simple mechanic from a small town, had been chosen to be at the center of such a complex and dangerous competition. "Are you lost, human?" A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Jack turned around and saw Lyra standing behind him. She was the woman who had spoken to him earlier, the one with the quiet strength in her eyes. There was something different about her compared to the others. Something genuine. "No, just thinking," Jack said, trying to smile, but it felt more like a forced grimace. "This whole thing is a lot to take in." Lyra smiled faintly. "I can imagine. It is not easy, being thrown into a situation like this. You're used to it, but for you, it must be overwhelming." Jack nodded, unsure of what to say next. He was still processing everything he had seen so far. "I don't belong here. I'm not like you." Lyra tilted her head, her violet eyes studying him closely. "No, you are not like us, but that does not make you less important. Your presence here is not by accident. You have been chosen for a reason, even if you do not fully understand it yet." Jack shook his head. "I never asked for this. Just a regular guy. I don't know how to fix this ... situation." Lyra's gaze softened. "No one ever asks for this, human. No one ever asks for the weight of a whole species to rest on their shoulders. But sometimes it is not about choice. It is about duty." Jack felt a strange sense of comfort in her words, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the calmness in her voice or the way she spoke so honestly. For the first time since he had arrived, Jack felt like he could at least talk to someone. "Without feeling like a complete outsider, I don't even know how this tournament works. What do I do in all this?" Jack asked, his frustration starting to show. "You watch," Lyra answered simply. "You observe. You see the strength, the will, and the hearts of those competing. We'll know when the time comes. But your choice is not made in haste. It is made with wisdom." Jack frowned. "I don't feel wise. I feel like I'm being thrown into something way over my head." "You are," Lyra agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you have something inside. You that none of us have. You have the ability to decide, and that makes you powerful." Before Jack could respond, a loud sound echoed through the ship, signaling the start of the next challenge. Lyra looked up at the ceiling and then back at Jack. "You should go," she said, her tone a little softer now. "The tournament awaits, and you will be needed." Jack gave her a small nod, feeling a mixture of uncertainty and curiosity. "Thanks for ... talking to me. I needed that." Lyra offered him a brief, encouraging smile before turning to walk away. Jack watched her disappear into the distance, and a feeling of doubt settled in his stomach. There was no escaping this, and he knew it. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way to make the best of it. As he made his way to the arena, Jack tried to focus on the task at hand. The next challenge was waiting for him, and he had no idea what to expect. When he entered the arena, he noticed that the contestants were already gathering. Their faces were serious, their eyes focused. The tension was palpable. Each of the women had already proven themselves in previous events, but now the stakes were higher. The challenges were becoming more difficult, and it was clear that only the strongest, both mentally and physically, would make it to the final round. Jack took his seat in the observation area, his eyes scanning the contestants. He could see the determination in their movements, the way each one carried herself with pride and strength. These women were not just competing for the chance to bear his child, they were fighting for the survival of their entire species. That knowledge made everything feel heavier. The horn sounded again, signaling the start of the next event. This time, it was a test of intelligence and strategy. The women were divided into teams, and given a series of complex puzzles and problems to solve. The puzzles were designed to test not only their problem-solving abilities, but also their ability to work together. Jack watched as the teams began to work, the women communicating with precision and efficiency. Their teamwork was incredible. They moved like a well-oiled machine, each person playing her part with ease. Jack could barely keep up with the speed at which they solved the puzzles. It was like watching a high-speed chess match, bout with real-life consequences. As the minutes ticked by, it became clear that Lyra's team was doing exceptionally well. She was calm, focused, and always a step ahead. Jack couldn't help but admire her. She was so different from the others, and yet she seemed to understand this whole situation in a way that made her stand out. By the end of the challenge, Lyra's team emerged victorious. The crowd cheered, but Jack noticed that Lyra didn't seem as pleased as the others. She smiled, but it was a quiet, thoughtful smile, as if she were considering something deeper than just winning the game. As the competition continued, Jack found himself growing more and more impressed by Lyra. She was strong, intelligent, and compassionate, all qualities that seemed to set her apart from the other women. He couldn't help but feel drawn to her in a way he hadn't expected. But he also knew that the tournament was far from over, and the final decision was still far away. For now, all Jack could do was watch and wait. He didn't know what the future held, but he was beginning to understand that this tournament was more than just a battle for his attention. It was a battle for survival. For a future that was uncertain for everyone involved, and maybe, just maybe, he would have a role in shaping that future. The days went by, each one blending into the next as the tournament progressed. Jack felt more like an observer than a participant, sitting in the stands, watching the women compete, each event more intense than the last. Despite the distance, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was becoming more deeply involved with each passing moment. The weight of the competition was heavier now. It's not just for the contestants, but for him as well. But it wasn't just the tournament that weighed on his mind. As he spent more time aboard the ship, Jack began to notice things, small, strange things. Whispers in the halls, looks exchanged between the women when they thought he wasn't paying attention, and the way Thalia sometimes watched him with an unreadable expression. It was as if there were more to this entire situation than he had been told. One evening, after the day's events had concluded, Jack found himself wandering through the ship's corridors once more, unable to sleep. The quiet hum of the ship seemed to be louder at night, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but something told him he needed to find out more about the women, the tournament, and the reason he was here. He rounded a corner and found himself in a part of the ship he hadn't seen before. The hallway was dimly lit, and the air was cooler here. There was a door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar, and from inside Jack could hear soft voices. His curiosity got the better of him, and he quietly moved closer. As he approached, he recognized Thalia's voice. She was speaking to someone, but Jack couldn't make out the words. Slowly, he pushed the door open, just enough to peek inside. What he saw surprised him in the room. Surrounded by glowing screens and strange alien equipment, Thalia was speaking, with two other women, both of whom Jack recognized from the tournament. One was tall and muscular. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with the glowing tattoos on her arms. The other was shorter, with silver hair and sharp green eyes that seemed to pierce through everything. They were talking about him. He's becoming too attached. The taller woman said, her voice low. He's starting to question everything. He doesn't understand what's at stake. Thalia's voice was calm, but firm. He will understand. It is only a matter of time. The key to our survival is in his hands, whether he wants it or not. He had no idea what they were talking about, but the tone of their conversation made it clear that there was more going on here than he had realized. They were talking about him like he was some kind of Tula, necessary piece in a much larger plan. But what was this plan? And why did it involve him? You're sure he doesn't know? The woman with the green eyes asked, her tone skeptical. Thalia nodded. He's still unaware of the full truth. He thinks he's just a pawn in our tournament, but he's more than that. We've chosen him for a reason beyond reproduction. His role is ... critical. Jack's mind was racing, trying to process what he had just heard. He took a step back, but in doing so, he accidentally knocked over a small metal object on the floor. The sound echoed in the quiet hallway, and before he could retreat, the door slid open fully. "Human," Thalia's voice called out. Sharper now. "What are you doing here?" Jack froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned to face her. Trying to stay calm. I was just... I heard voices. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Thalia's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger in them. Instead, there was something else, something Jack couldn't quite place. "You shouldn't have heard that," she said softly. "But since you did, I suppose it's time you knew the truth." Jack felt his stomach churn. "The truth about what?" Thalia stepped forward, gesturing for the other women to leave. "The truth about why you're here, how we've brought you to our world." Jack felt a wave of unease wash over him. He had known there was more to the story, but hearing the words from Thalia's lips made everything feel even more real. "I don't understand. You told me this tournament was to choose who would bear my child, but... The tournament is... Only part of it," Thalia interrupted. "That is the surface reason, the one you were meant to believe. The truth is much deeper, and it involves more than just reproduction." Jack felt a cold chill run down his spine. "Then what is it? What do you need me for?" Thalia looked at him, her eyes cold and calculating. "Our species has been dying for centuries. Not just because we can't reproduce, but because of a disease. A genetic disorder that affects our entire race. It has been slowly killing us, and no medicine, no technology, no therapy has been able to cure it." Jack's mind was spinning. "A disease? You didn't say anything about that? You just told me ... "We could not tell you everything," Thalia said, her voice softening slightly. "But you need to understand, the tournament is not just a way to choose the right woman to carry your child. It is also a means to heal us. You, human, are the key to our survival. Your genetics are different, stronger in ways we did not anticipate, and that strength is what we need." Jack's breath caught in his throat. "You mean my DNA is what's going to save you?" "Yes," Thalia confirmed. "Your genes carry the ability to heal the damage done by our disease. A child born of you will have the power to cure us. You are not just a mate or a savior." Jack stood there in stunned silence. His mind struggled to process what Thalia had just said. The stakes were much higher than he had realized. This wasn't just about some strange tournament. This was about the survival of an entire species. And somehow, he was at the center of it all. So, ... All of this, the tournament, the challenge is it. Was all part of a plan to make sure your people survive? Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. Thalia nodded. Yes, but we didn't know how strong the bond would be. We didn't expect you to care about us, or for the tournament to matter to you in the way it has. But it does, doesn't it? Jack's mind was racing, and his heart felt heavy. He didn't know what to feel. He'd been thrown into a situation he couldn't control, and now the truth had finally come out. He wasn't just a participant in a strange competition. He was the hope of an entire alien race. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. So, what happens now? I still have to choose one of your women, don't I? Thalia's gaze softened for the first time. Yes, you do. But the choice you make will affect more than just the future of our species. It will change everything. Jack looked at her, his mind still trying to grasp everything. I don't know what to do. Thalia stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. You will know when the time comes. And when you do, you will make the choice that is right for you, ... and for all of us. The revelation had shaken Jack to his core. His mind raced, unable to settle on any one thought for too long. The women of the Zorethian race weren't just fighting for the chance to bear his child. They were fighting for their very survival. They needed him, but it wasn't just about genetics or reproduction. It was about saving an entire species from extinction. The weight of that knowledge felt like a heavy burden pressing down on his chest. Jack spent the next few days in a daze, lost in thought, watching as the tournament continued. Each day, the challenges grew more intense, pushing the women to their limits. They fought with everything they had, and Jack couldn't help but admire their strength, their determination, their willingness to fight for something they believed, and something greater than themselves. The competition had narrowed down to just a handful of women. Lyra was still in the running, and Jack couldn't help but feel drawn to her more than the others. She had shown herself to be not only strong and intelligent, but also compassionate and kind. She had been the first to speak to him in a way that made him feel like he wasn't just a prize to be won. In her, Jack had found an ally, someone who understood the pain of being caught in the middle of something beyond his control. But there were others, two who had proven themselves in the tournament. There was Nira, a fierce warrior with an unyielding spirit. She had dominated every physical challenge, her strength unmatched by any other. Then there was Alara, a strategist with an uncanny ability to outthink her opponents. She had won nearly every intellectual challenge, using her sharp mind to outmaneuver everyone else. Each woman had her own unique qualities, each one deserving of Jack's attention. But none had the same connection he had with Lyra. As the final round of the tournament approached, Jack found himself spending more time with her. They would sit together during breaks, talking about everything and nothing at all. Jack found himself confiding in her, something he hadn't done with anyone else since arriving. Lyra listened patiently, her understanding gaze always kind and never judgmental. "You're different from the others," Jack said one evening as they sat together outside, looking out over the ship's view of the stars. "You don't seem like you're just in this for the competition." Lyra smiled softly. "I am in this for my people, just as they are. But I am also in this for something else, for understanding. This tournament is more than just a way to choose a mate. It's a way for our people to reconnect with something we've lost: our connection to the world around us, our sense of purpose. I'm not just competing to bear your child, competing to give my people hope." Jack looked at her, her words resonating with him in a way he hadn't expected. He'd always thought of this whole situation as a game, something forced upon him that he had no say in. But hearing Lyra speak, he realized that for these women, this wasn't just a game, it was a chance to save everything they had known, to give their species a future. "I don't know what to choose," Jack admitted, his voice heavy with uncertainty. "You all deserve a chance. I can't make this decision. I don't know what's right." Lyra turned to face him, her violet eyes filled with something deeper: understanding, empathy. "You don't have to choose, Jack. Not yet. But when the time comes, you will know. You'll know who will give you the future you need, the one who will be your equal." Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "I feel like I'm being forced into something I don't understand. I never asked for any of this." Lyra's gaze softened. "None of us did. But life has a way of placing us where we need to be. Maybe we don't have control over the beginning of our journey, but we always have control over how we finish it." Her words were like a weight lifted from his shoulders. And for the first time since his abduction, Jack felt a sense of clarity. Lyra wasn't just offering him advice. She was showing him that he had the power to make a difference. His choice would matter not just for his future, but for theirs as well. The next day, the final event of the tournament began. It was a test of everything's strength, intelligence, teamwork, and survival skills. The women were tasked with navigating a dangerous, obstacle-filled terrain that simulated the harshest conditions of their home planet. The arena was set up like a jungle, with vines, sharp rocks, and wild animals hidden within the foliage. Contestants had to use their wits and skills to complete the course. While avoiding dangerous traps and obstacles, the event was brutal. Jack watched as the women tackled each obstacle with precision and agility. Lyra moved with grace, her movements fluid and calculated as she navigated the dangerous terrain. Nira, the powerhouse, cleared every physical challenge with ease, while Alara seemed to always be a step ahead, analyzing the environment and finding the safest paths through the chaos. But it was Lyra who stood out. Even when faced with the most difficult challenges, she remained calm, focused, and determined. Jack couldn't take his eyes off her. There was something about her that felt right, a quiet strength that spoke to him on a deeper level. as the competition neared its end. Lyra and Nira remained. Both had completed the course with impressive times, but there could only be one winner. The final challenge was a test of survival. Each woman had to retrieve a rare, glowing flower from the center of the jungle, a flower that was guarded by a vicious, deadly creature. Lyra was the first to make her move, slipping past the creature with grace and precision. She reached the flower, her hand outstretched to take it, but just as she did, the creature lunged at her, teeth bared. Without thinking, Jack stood up, his heart racing. He couldn't let her get hurt. But in that split second, Lyra turned, drawing a weapon from her side and facing the creature with unwavering courage. With a quick practice strike, she incapacitated the creature, securing the flower. The crowd erupted in applause as Lyra stood victorious, holding the flower high. Jack's heart was in his throat as he watched her, amazed by her strength and courage. It was clear to him now Lyra was the one. She wasn't just the strongest, the smartest, or the bravest. She was everything he needed, everything he had been searching for. The final choice had been made, not by him, but by fate. And Jack knew, deep down, that Lyra was the one who would give him the future he never thought he'd have. The days after the final event were filled with a strange quietness. The tournament had ended, and the excitement of the competition had finally settled into a tense, uneasy calm. Jack could hardly focus on anything else. His mind was consumed. With the choice that lay before him, one that could change everything, the tournament was over, and now it was time to decide who would be the one to carry his child. The woman who would become central to the future of an entire alien race. But Jack didn't feel powerful. He didn't feel like a savior. He felt more lost than ever. Lyra had won. She had proven herself in every challenge, not just with strength and intelligence, but with grace and dignity. She was everything Jack admired in a person, strong yet kind, determined yet compassionate. Yet even as the winner, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his decision was far more complex than choosing a partner for one moment. It wasn't just about her, it was about the future of both their species. Jack found himself walking the corridors of the ship once again, the hum of the engines beneath his feet grounding him, but also reminding him of the journey he had never asked for. He paused in front of the large viewing window, staring out into the vastness of space. The stars seemed so far away, almost unreachable. "What are you thinking about, human?" A voice broke the silence, and Jack turned to see Thalia standing behind him. "I'm trying to make sense of everything," Jack replied, his voice low. "I never asked to be part of this. I didn't ask to be put in the middle of your species' future." Thalia stepped closer, her calm expression unchanging. "You were chosen for a reason. You may not understand it yet, but your presence here has already made a difference. You are more than just a participant in this tournament. You are the key to our survival." Jack shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "That's the problem. I don't feel like a key. I feel like a pawn." Thalia studied him for a moment, then spoke softly. "The choice is yours to make." It always has been." Jack turned away from the window and looked at Thalia. "How can I choose? How do I decide between all of you?" Thalia didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the window and stood beside him, looking out into space. "You don't choose just with your mind, human. You choose with your heart," Jack sighed. "I'm not sure my heart is enough. It has always been enough," Thalia replied. "Now, you must trust it. The woman you choose will not just be the one to bear your child. She will be the one who stands by your side, facing the future together. It is not just about genetics, but about what you build together." Jack let her words sink in. He had been so focused on the weight of the decision, the pressure to make the right choice, that he had forgotten what it meant to truly choose someone. This wasn't just about saving a species or fulfilling a prophecy. It was about a partnership, a future with someone who understood him, who could stand with him in whatever came next. The next day, Jack met with Lyra in the same quiet corner of the ship where they had talked before. Her eyes softened when she saw him, a gentle smile appearing on her face. "Hello, human," she said, her voice warm, but there was something more in it. "Now, something that had always been there, but had never been so clear to him before. Lyra. Jack said, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about trust in the future, but I'm still not sure what the right choice is. Lyra took a step closer, her eyes searching his. Don't have to be sure yet. I know the burden you carry. It's not easy to choose, especially when it's so important. Shook his head. It's not that. I'm just afraid. Afraid that I'll make the wrong choice, and everything will fall apart. Fear is natural, Lyra said gently, but sometimes the right choice isn't always the one that feels easy. It's the one that feels right in your heart, even if it scares you. Jack looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. She wasn't just strong and capable. She was someone he could trust, someone who had shown him kindness in a way no one else had. And in that moment, Jack knew what he had to do. I don't have all the answers, Jack said, his voice quieter now, but I know that I can't do this alone. And I don't want to. Lyra's gaze softened, and for the first time, she took his hand in hers. You don't have to. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of his decision finally beginning to settle in a way that felt right. I choose you, Lyra. Not just because of the tournament, but because of everything you are. You've shown me that there's more to this than just surviving. It's about living together. Lyra's eyes glistened with emotion, and for a moment she said nothing. Then, with a small smile, she nodded. Then let's face the future together, human. The decision had been made. It wasn't just about his future, or hers it was, about their shared future. Jack had realized that this wasn't a choice he could make out of fear or pressure. It was a choice he could only make with the trust and understanding they had built over their time together in the days that followed. The ship's inhabitants began to prepare for the next stage, the beginning of a new chapter for both their species. Jack and Lyra worked side by side, learning about each other's cultures, hopes, and dreams. They were no longer strangers to one another. They'd become partners, united not just by fate, but by their mutual desire to build a future that was better than the past. The galaxy still had its challenges, and the future was uncertain. But as Jack stood by Lyra's side, watching the stars from the ship's observation deck, he felt a sense of peace. For the first time since he had been abducted, he no longer felt lost. He had found his place, not just in the universe, but in the heart of someone who would stand with him through whatever lay ahead, and together, they would face the future, whatever it might bring.